um, with how we do it if needed.
But yeah,
Right, good.
And so, Michael, are you guys ready? No, you're okay. Hey, Wendy, do we have the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay.
You're so good at it now.
Yeah, you're a pro.
I didn't even see you.
Are we
I was like,
ready?
"Oh,
Are we
hi."
ready, Destiny? Good. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone out to Thursday, October 15th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. We will call this meeting to order, and we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance offered by Wendy from city staff.
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Andy. We heard you as well. So we do have a full quorum. So we will be having Lauren, Andrea, Heather, Andy, Brody, and Adam sitting. Joy, one of our alternates, is also present. Do we have any conflicts of interest with any of the items on the agenda today?
No.
All right. Hearing none, then we will jump into the administrative items with item 3.1, which is a request for or discussion and consideration of a revised land use master plan for the South Hills development. And we'll look to city staff for additional information to start.
all right. So you guys have seen this a couple times, I think. So again, this is the South Hills Master Plan, which is part of their development agreement. So let me, oh, Blake made it fancy flying. So this is just a vicinity map to show you where we're talking about over in the east side of Harriman, south of Mountain View Corridor. So this is the current plan they have approved. They have amended this plan. The Planning Commission has amended this plan, I should know, at least twice, maybe 3 times, to do a couple different things. They added RSL, they added some additional property. If you remember a couple years ago, some of you remember, they moved some of the density from above Mountain View down below to do the Soleil Lofts apartments when they were doing the RSL complex. So they have changed that a couple times. So this is the current plan. What they are doing now is adding some property. And what they are adding is, I have it in my staff report, but I want to say it's like 150 acres up above Mountain View. I can't point for you, but here, I'll show it to you. Clear up almost adjacent to Camp Williams. So this is Blake's presentation, so I'm presenting it for him, so I will do my best while he's at Lagoon. Frightmares or whatever it's called. So one of the things that the council had asked us to look at, and we assumed that you wanted to know, was what they were proposing, and then how that, because this is part of their MDA, it's vested under the 2008 general plan, not our current 2014 general plan. Y'all confused? So we compared this to the 2008 general plan because when they bring in property, they get to bring it in at 4.5 units per acre, which means 4.5 units per acre goes into their bucket of units. But then when they develop it, they still have to comply with the general plan. So they don't necessarily get 4.5 units on the property they're adding. Does that make sense? So we compared it to the 2008 general plan. Oh, look at Blake's little animation. One of the things we wanted to point out is originally they were asking for units on part of the RSL property and adding that to the plan. That has been removed. So they're no longer asking for units on that portion there that's being called out on that RSL property. So we compared, and it's not beautiful just because we kind of had to overlay them and look at them, but we compared the general plan with what they were proposing, and the short answer is they're very, very similar. We didn't see a huge, so you can see the categories were not exactly the same, so again, kind of hard to compare apples to apples. but the commercial and the open space is actually increasing because they're adding, you'll remember pods 35 and 39 off of Mountain View and Real Vista, which is the large commercial property that we've approved. So the overall commercial property has gone up. The overall actual parks and open space property is increasing, and the housing acres have actually gone down a little bit. So you can kind of see there the comparison between the general plan and what they're proposing. What do we got here, Blake? Oh, so this again just shows their total bucket of units. You'll see down at the bottom they had 1268. What they're asking for now with the addition is the 1502. And then how they allocate them in each pod. What you are approving is, again, is a couple things. So let me go back to the plan here. Is adding the new property and then changing some uses around, and adding the density kind of buckets on each of those properties. Each of the pods comes back to you like they do now for a final site plan and details and platting. But you are assigning densities at this point to those pods. Again, the two red ones, the commercial pods 35 and 39, and then the about 100 acres up above Mountain View Corridor adjacent to Camp Williams.
If I may just maybe add on to what Bryn just shared. The development agreement process, of course, is essentially a contract that's between the city, and which is represented by the city council, and of course the developer, the master developer. This process that we're going through right now is not regulated by traditional land use development regulations. If you look in our development code, it doesn't say anything about master development agreements. But as we know, the city council has routinely requested that the Planning Commission review these proposals, these development agreements and development agreement amendments. So it is their request that the Planning Commission review this and make a recommendation. In addition to essentially the land use map, the applicant has also been preparing, or I should say the developer's attorney has prepared some textual modifications to the agreement that will also be presented to the city council for decision. We've also been asking the development team to prepare and update a number of maps that deal with engineering issues. So there are more elements of the amendment than just the land use map. But this is specifically an element that we were, would like to have the commission's review and recommendation on. If for some reason the commission feels like you need more information, just make sure you're very clear as to what you want staff or the developer to do so that we can come back to you again in a future meeting and, deliver the information that you need. However, if you feel like we have the right information and you feel ready to make a recommendation, we're anticipating moving this right to the city council. We had the same presentation with the city council last night in their work session. It was just for discussion only. But obviously, this will be, on the future council agenda for further review and eventually a decision. So,
Thank you, Michael.
yeah.
Is the applicant here? You want to come up? And please just state your name and any additional information.
You may just want to clarify your role also on this project.
I'm Reed Dixon. I'm with Infinity Consultants, and we provide consulting for the actual applicant, who is Wasatch Commercial. So I'm standing in for John Lindsley tonight. It's easy to get complicated with this, so I'll try to refine it to the simple version. The simple version is the MDA allows the project to add additional properties. This happens to be contiguous property. It doesn't have to be contiguous. I know that was a question by someone recently. The Kunkler property that we call it is south and central on here. It's kind of a salmon color generally. It's about 150 acres. And then the two red squares are pods 35 and 39, and those are also being added to the MDA. So there's a total of about 200 acres plus that are being added, again at the 4.5 that is per the MDA. Then the distribution of those additional units that are in the bucket of units has been per or not to exceed what the general plan of 2008 stipulates. So what we show essentially on the map for the Kunkler property, which is that salmon color, is in conformance with the 2008 plan. So last night at City Council, there was a work session on this item a little discussion, and they basically said with each other what I'm saying now, that this expanded plan conforms with the MDA, which means it also conforms with the 2008 general plan. I think it helps you with the previous discussion you had about a balance of lots and lot sizes. One thing I wanted to stress with this is the Kunkler property not only brings in those more lots at those densities and sizes that are called out by the general plan and the MDA, but it also pulls in some really large and significant open spaces, some that will end up being native and will simply be aesthetic or will provide trail corridors, but others that will be flatter and very landscaped and usable. There's a central kind of regional park in that upper area that will be especially improved. So that's the plan for that area. So not only are you just getting these numbers of units and people and impact, but you're getting a lot of amenity that goes with it.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I listened last night, Reed. Open space, we're going back, that was a question I think was asked last night, was open space. It goes back to the '08, as far as counting open, like unusable, unbuildable space.
Slope, yeah.
Slope still does not, applies differently in this instance than it would currently, correct? Under current, if I remember the question last night correctly.
Yes, yeah, so the current code, the code at the time allowed them to count the slope at 50%. Our code now says 25%.
Okay.
So there was a reduction at the time, but it wasn't the same that it is now.
Okay,
We have quite the surplus of open space regardless.
right,
Yeah,
right. I just heard that last night, and I thought
yeah,
that was
it is different than today.
worth mentioning right now, just because I heard that last night.
I saw there's a shift. If you look at the previous plan, I think we lose about 100 acres of low density with,
You need us to switch the screen.
Yeah, go back
Yeah.
to that. That's the one I'm,
like pod 5, like if you look at pod 5, that switched from low density to medium, and then
Right.
there's some other areas that switch to, I guess, medium density from low. Not that my opinion would be, have more variety in the low density, but what was the mindset of shifting it to medium demand or opportunity?
Well, we're actually not using as many units as we could. So
Gotcha.
just understand, if you can, that the plan is modest in terms of application of the bucket of density that's allowed.
Uh-huh.
And it's modest in terms of adhering to it's conservative in terms of adhering to the 2008 general plan.
Okay.
So, and also, sometimes we think of higher or multifamily or medium or low, and we have these quick preconceived stereotype. If you look at the numbers, the medium density has density ranges that go all the way from in the low 5 units per acre up to 6.
Yeah.
And the low density classification was basically in the 2.5 range. So
Gotcha.
just understand that just because you go from medium to high doesn't mean you go from, country living to Manhattan.
Yeah,
It's-
that peachy,
It's a numerical subtlety in a way.
that peachy kind of color, because it is kind of hard to read on there, is
Medium.
which
Up
is the
to 6
medium, is
units.
up to 6. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that would still most likely be detached. That's not even going to be townhome density.
Yeah.
So don't see medium and
Yeah,
assume
it's
that
like
means
smaller lots, right?
it's smaller lots, yeah.
And so
Open
we
space, I
don't,
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that is nice because, I mean, I don't know, me, when you get smaller, you do need more open space to make it work or want to live there.
and also that is, we are clustering. There is a principle that says clustering is good, and therefore the smaller lot sizes are good, so that you do have the open spaces. And it's kind of previous topic, but some of those smaller lot sizes might have been accompanied by open space and should be considered larger, even though they're smaller.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're doing here. Also, understand that those are the maximums, and the history has been that, for example, on Pod 2 and Pod 4, below Mountain View Corridor, there were over 200 units that didn't get used. And so we're not making any commitment that that will also happen above the corridor, but it could.
Gotcha.
And if you look at the table, and again, even in your packet, it might be easier to see all those, it calls out in each pod. Well, in pod 5, it says 5.2 units per acre. Pod 11 is only 4.2 units. So there's only actually one of them that goes up to 6 units per acre.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for pointing that out.
So it is kind of called out specifically in each pod.
And those numbers were generated based on analysis. They weren't pulled just kind of out of the sky, because certain pods have steeper terrain than others, or different access, or some pods have a large roadway going through the middle like Pod 5 does. And so each one was given a reasonable assignment so that it could develop in a quality way.
Regarding the pods and the units, the current agreement specifies that there's an underlying requirement to comply with the zone. That has been an issue or a question that we've been asking the developer on, whether or not that needs to have some clarification or modification to accommodate this plan. So that is one of the topics that the city council will be considering. Their attorney has prepared some language to amend that so that there would be some abilities to spend these units. Again, like Reed said, it's a clustering approach. So like I said, right now we're currently limited to the zoning tools that we have right in our current code. And some of these pods would potentially exceed those limits. And so that's an issue that the city council will also be addressing.
Is the mixed use, I think it's pod 17, like that got switched to, sorry, I'm trying to look at what it is, multifamily?
An RM, yeah, it'll be a multifamily, right?
Yeah.
Michael, maybe this is a question more for you than Reed, I guess. What development agreement was covered, the commercial pods? Were those under a different MDA prior to this?
Yeah, 35 and 39 were part of Rosecrest.
So,
And then they're getting removed out of Rosecrest and put into South Hills.
and I don't want to sound accusatory with this, but if that's already, we're already going to get that commercial. That's already there. It's already approved. Now we're wanting to add it to this South Hills Master Development Agreement, basically just so they can add units. Am I understanding that right? Because that's already done. Why are we adding
Actually
it to
not
this?
done. The council hasn't rezoned it yet because it's part of this MDA, so it's still sitting with the council. You recommended approval of the zoning and the site plan, and then it's been sitting because the MDA has to be amended first.
Okay, well then let me ask it this way then. Did that commercial factor into the Rosecrest density allotments? Like, does that make sense? You see,
Well, they used it before,
Did they
now
use
they
it
moved it, and they're
before?
using it again with a new
that's my
development.
concern, that we've used that commercial as
density.
leverage twice to get density to different developments. Does that make sense?
It does
So
make
under
sense. It
Rosecrest,
does
did
make
they
sense.
use the residential, or I mean the commercial to then also get,
Rosecrest is reducing their units when they lost that property. Does that make sense? So Rosecrest reduced those units out of their bucket. Even though they didn't have units assigned to it, they still agreed to reduce their bucket. And then South Hills gets to add that to their bucket. So it is getting reduced from Rosecrest and added to South Hills.
is Rosecrest going to be, is that going to be written, is that going to be signed and done before a new development agreement?
It's already done, I think.
Is the Rosecrest
We already took it out of
reductions already?
Rosecrest.
This is Chase. We've
Chase will remember.
completed that amendment to the Rosecrest MDA, and they have lost those units.
Okay.
So their MDA has had those units deducted out of those pods, or that would have been used by those pods.
I forgot
That's
Chase
not
was.
So where would those have
twice,
come from
basically.
then? I guess where would those have come from to understand where they would have come from in Rosecrest? Where would Rosecrest be building that they're losing them from? What's
They
their
just got
future?
reduced from their bucket.
Does Rosecrest have any
Yep,
land
from their
left?
total maximum residential units.
But do they have land left? Where's, I guess, being kind of new still, where's their land left to build that they would
They
have?
have land left above Juniper Crest, where Greystone is, and some of that. They still have a few pods up there.
So it could affect that to where that could be some more lower density up there where it probably is more appropriate. Is that,
It could, it likely won't. Because they had, just like these guys have had, well in excess of units that they haven't used. So it does reduce their overall bucket, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will reduce those leftover phases. It could, but I just want to be clear. I don't want you to think that it
Right. No,
will,
I get it.
'cause
No, I get it.
I don't know that it will,
right, I get it.
because they have had excess units to lose, so.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? We'll let the applicant sit down.
Thank you
for
very
now.
much.
Thank you. And then more discussion amongst the planning commission.
I don't know. For me, we're kind of stuck. I don't really love amending a master plan agreement, but we wrote it into the provision to allow it. So I personally just think we're kind of stuck. So.
I mean, it would be nice to see more lower density, but again, like you said, the MDA says that's what they're allowed to do. So that's my opinion.
I would recommend never having this clause in any MDA ever again.
And Chase, maybe you can just sort of give us a 2-minute education on MDAs and what exactly is happening here, because I think you can tell from the planning commission perspective, we definitely don't feel like we have much input on this.
Right, and it does come down to contractual rights, and you have to balance those against what our current land use ordinances are. And as we all know, those master development agreements in their own way become the land use ordinance for the area within that master development agreement. So it is a negotiable provision, right? It's something that could have been addressed at the time the master development agreement was executed. It's hard to know what the effect of that's going to be. 12 years down the road now? This is a 2008 master development agreement. So it really is a contractual right that the party has in this case to bring this forward now and ask for this amendment.
And maybe you can clarify, because you definitely have probably looked at this more than you've wanted to recently. So with them adding property on here, and you tell me if I'm wrong or in line, has it been concluded that they can add a property within the city anywhere into this MDA?
So with any amendment to an MDA, you obviously don't have to approve the addition of land. We've gone through that pretty extensively, and you don't have to allow that, or the city council rather doesn't have to allow that. I think it makes sense to do it if it fits into the overall master plan for that area and the city's general plan, right? I mean, we had this land. This is a great example. We had this land under previous master development agreement, the Rosecrest MDA, pods 35 and 39 specifically. We have now an opportunity to say, hey, it's not necessarily contiguous with the existing land in the South Hills MDA, but we can ask for some things. As Bryn has mentioned, we're actually getting fewer units now than would have been available, than we may have gotten under the Rosecrest MDA. So I don't know if that's the answer to your question, but it maybe provides some context of what you can do, what you can ask for. And really it comes down to a negotiation between the parties anytime you amend the MDA to a degree.
And Chris, I would just clarify, their MDA does say they can add property, but it says it has to be within the annexation area. So it couldn't be on the other side of town. It has to be part of the disconnect annexation area
Over here?
That's right.
over here in East
Yeah,
Hampton, yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. All right.
Just have a question. So on the image on the left, it shows in dark green parks, and then the one on the, I guess the right doesn't have that. I know you guys talked about there's parks and other things that are gonna go in.
Yeah, and Reed can, again, the one on the left is the general plan. The general plan actually has a category for parks and one for open space. Their land use plan just classifies it all as open space. It doesn't really specify whether it's parks or open space, so, again, it's not really an across-the-board comparison. But their proposed plan does have as much open space. Again, it has actually more acreage of parks or open space as was shown in the general plan.
So, and I know we have a park that's going in a little farther down, that strip that goes in the other portion, but is this going to help with this area of the city with actual usable, reasonable sized park? Or is it really not?
There is a park here that Reed was talking about, and I apologize that I can't point to it. Let me go back.
Because I know a lot of this is just, it's going to be open space, but not usable.
So if you can see up between pods 12 and 13 where it says regional park.
Okay. How large is that
Put
park?
your eyes. You can-
Yeah. How large is that park, do you know?
Oh, that's a great question, Reed. 10 acres.
Okay. Because we're very lacking and I mean,
On this end of town, which for
yeah.
sure we are,
Yeah, and there's a reasonable amount of units that will be going in. If we can say that. And so it's definitely something that there's a huge need in the city. And so that's why I'm wondering, because I know the open space and other stuff that goes other places, and this might be the only recommendation that comes from me to share with the city council, is I would venture to say, because of the master development agreement, if this is how many units they get, so be it. But try to work out something to where they have a lot larger park that they put in, even if they have to have even more density in some of the area. Because it needs to have something in this area if we can do it.
More clustering maybe to get maybe a bigger, flatter area.
Because that it's very lacking in this side of the city.
Reed, they don't ever say that, so take note what he just said. No.
So
I
think,
would also point out that we wouldn't necessarily call 10 acres a regional park.
yeah.
I mean, it's a good sized park for that. It's not going to draw
Not a
from the
huge
whole
park.
city.
I know.
Really not a
totally,
huge
you know what I mean?
park.
It's
Yeah.
not. It will definitely provide for that area, but.
So, but anyway, that's the only thought I had on this. It's hard for me to even share anything because this is a very frustrating MDA.
Well, the one thing I was just gonna add is like where we have pods 34 and I think 38, where it's multifamily stacked. Again,
That's where Soleil Lofts is, yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's already built out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, that was an amendment that was made a few years ago where we moved that density there when they were building the complex to
Yeah,
put that
yeah.
density near the complex, yeah.
Well, and Brent, I don't know how to put this in there too, kind of like what they're saying. That's moving forward, we're back to being hung up on talking about units, number of units. We're not talking about lot size. We're just not, we've got to get to the point where we're focusing on, because we're not against we're not against units being built, but we need that balance is what we need. I mean, that's what we're after. We're not fighting number of units, we're fighting the type of units, I guess. And I know that, again, we're stuck on this, just like Adam was saying, but man,
Well, you're stuck and you're not. You still have the ability to make sure it's a good development. So I know you have
There's more
some
work to do down the road,
parameters,
right.
so it's hard, but
Well, I mean, we're very lacking in a regional park and in that area, and we have more density in that side of the city than anywhere. And I think the applicant had a comment, and I don't mind him sharing it if he'd like to.
I held up my hands and said 10 acres. That's the part that's supposed to be, it's very central and it's supposed to be very landscaped and developed with amphitheater or pavilion or parking or whatever improvements and irrigation. But as you can tell, contiguous with that is another 20 or 30 acres of open space that's going to
It
be
goes
also,
down that drainage kind
will
of,
be also
yeah.
developed with trails and viewpoints and parking areas and other things that we haven't quite planned all the way out yet.
And I think, at
something
least
similar
from
to
my
Juniper
perspective,
So it's
we're
not just-
lacking
Yeah,
in the
similar to Juniper
usable
Canyon.
space. We're really lacking in that city on that side to have a park that has fields that are accessible, that has those type of amenities to the community. Because Real Salt Lake is amazing, but it's not usable for the community with a lot of that stuff. And so we are lacking in that area. And so
But I
that's.
think the topography plays into account there too.
And it
a
does,
lot.
and I understand that, and I understand the limitations and some problems that occur, but
And I think we do, with that open space, like I was kind of mentioning, we do something like Juniper Crest. I mean, that park that they're doing, we can do some other Juniper, is it Juniper Canyon?
even the one that goes up Rosecrest with the soccer field that goes down in the ditch, and they've made very good usage of.
So
that
we could come back,
space
I
in
mean,
some
I think
extent,
as we
so.
move down, we can come back and talk about options in there.
If there's one thing I know about Wendy,
Yeah, she will
she'll
find a
use
way.
every inch of this property, and like you said, it may not be big and flat for fields, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be all kinds of amenities up here, but it may not be the spot for acres of soccer fields or whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, and we are getting some, I'm trying to look,
Yes.
trying to look at the positives right now. Like, if we're gonna have density, again, this is the place to put it. It is against, so the location won't be bad. And that commercial they're bringing up still is gonna be nice. That commercial that's coming is still, so, I mean, hats off to them. They didn't have to bring that kind of commercial to the city either, so that's gonna be a huge help, so.
I will just say as a side note to that, we received an application yesterday for the grocery store on Pod 35, so
I've heard a certain name mentioned too.
it's moving, Things
Good.
are happening.
So I guess at this point, unless there's more comments from the planning commission, we're looking at a motion to be made. And is this, because this is a little bit different, I mean, this is not a recommendation or anything like that, this is.
It is a recommendation.
This
not a
is a
recommendation,
recommendation,
yeah.
okay. So this is a recommendation to the city council.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of item 3.1, a request for consideration of a revised land use master plan for the South Hills development.
I'll second.
I'll give it to Heather. So we'll call for a vote. Lauren,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
and Adam.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. We'll move on to item 3.2, which is a request for a review of building elevations for Anthem Commercial Lot 204. And we'll go to city staff.
All right, so this is just a vicinity map to show you where it is. This is up just next to JCW's, north of Winco. This lot was approved by you guys, let me get it closer up here. Last year, if you remember, the owner of JCW's had this lot. They need a lot of parking at JCW's because that place is hopping. So you approved a site plan. He wasn't quite sure about the building at the time. And so when he was gonna build the building, he needed to come back and just have the elevations approved. So that's what he's doing now, is just to have you look at the elevations. So again, just a reminder of the site. The JCW's is on your right, and the proposed commercial building there on the left, on the corner there. So the site was all approved and the parking and everything. This is the building they're proposing. Again, this is part of the Anthem area, so they're following the Anthem commercial design guidelines. Anthem has reviewed these and approved them. One of the things you asked for in your original approval was a materials board, so they've submitted this kind of an electronic materials board that show you what they're doing and the colors. I'll go back to the building there. So really, all you're looking at here is the elevations, the parking, the landscaping, everything else you guys approved last year. This is just the building at this point, so.
All right, then, if the applicant's here and has anything else to share.
BJ Lund, Element Architecture. And Chris Williams, JCW. Sorry. What?
Just if there's any additional information that you guys need to share.
Not much. We designed it to basically resemble the JCW so that it has a similar architecture and feel. A lot of the detailing's the same. The materials are the same. We really wanted to make it look like a cohesive site with the two different buildings there. So, yeah, it's a lot of glass. We've incorporated storefront on what's technically the back side of the retail because that faces, there's some of the roads as well to really make it look attractive on all four sides. Yeah.
All right. Any questions for the applicant?
I don't think so. It
All
looks
right, I
good.
think you guys can have a seat.
Do you guys have any users lined up yet, or? Okay. Just wondered, okay.
Yeah, big
We'll
fan,
send people your way if we talk to people.
big fan of JCWs, by the way.
Huge fans.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then we'll look at Planning Commission for additional comments and/or to make a motion.
I just want to say I appreciate the care that they took on the backside of the buildings. There's some buildings in our city where you can see a drastic difference side by side of someone that took the time to make it a cohesive unit all the way around. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and this one's visible from all four sides,
Yeah.
so. I'll look for a motion from the Planning Commission.
I move to approve item 3.2.
I'll second that.
Motion by Adam, second by Brody, and then we'll call for a vote. Lauren?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
And Adam?
Yes.
We'll move on to item 3.3, which is a request for a subdivision plot amendment to add 7 lots to the Anthem commercial plot. And we'll go to city staff.
Okay, sorry, let me get there. Okay, we're on 3.3? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is just right next door where this is in the Anthem commercial subdivision. So as you remember, they did kind of a subdivision of a bunch of giant super pads, and then they've come in and done several subdivision amendments to break up the lots. So the lots we're looking at here are these ones here, as shown on your map there. Again, this is a plat amendment. It's not a public hearing because the owner owns, same property owner owns all the lots, so we're not required to do a public hearing. So this is the current plat, and again, this is the 4th amendment was the current one. Now we're on the 5th amendment. So we're actually adding 7 lots into this kind of area and breaking it up there. So that's all this one is just, again, just the plat amendment to add up the lots, to break up these lots for some users.
All right, great. Is the applicant here?
He is on the line.
I'm here on Zoom.
All right, do you want to just state your name for us?
Corey Gost. I'm with Arbor Commercial Real Estate and Anthem Center.
All right, great. Do you have additional, information for us?
Well, this plot here is just to divide up this section of this, like she said, the super pad. The next item on the agenda is the Ziggy's Coffee, which has triggered this section to start development. So that's where we're bringing the plat in at this time to divide this parcel up into different sections.
All right, thank you, Corey. Any questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, we'll turn to the Planning Commission, but thank you for your comments, Corey.
You're welcome.
Any remarks from the Planning Commission on this? Or are you guys ready to make a motion?
Just the same question that Brent asked on the previous. Are there other tenants proposed or just the coffee shop?
Corey?
Right now, it's just the coffee shop, but we're starting to work with, try to work with other people to bring them into this section. But this will kick off that section of the project.
Great. All right, Planning Commission looking for a motion at this time unless there's additional
I make a
comments.
motion on item 3.3 to approve it with staff 6 recommendations.
Second.
Thank you, Adam. Second by Andrea, correct?
Yes.
All right, then we'll call for a vote with Adam,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
and Lauren.
Yes.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 3.4. Any, I guess, information from the planning or from city
Yeah.
staff?
Let me show you I'm just trying to get the PowerPoint figured out. Don't know why, but it stopped working on me there. There we go. Okay. So again, this item is for a proposed Ziggy's coffee shop. You can see where it is there. This is the one small lot on the corner, which is part of the plat we just approved. You can see where it is there, just kind of west of Winco. And again, it's lot 504 there on the corner. So this is the site plan. Turn now the other direction. Again, it's a fairly small building. Again, it's drive-through for coffee. So, but they have provided quite a bit of stacking, 12 car stacking for the drive-through. They do meet the landscaping requirement, 15% landscaping on site, and they meet the required parking. Kind of a close-up there, you can see it. We've got a little patio area outside there. And there's the landscaping plan. And then the building elevations, again, these are part of Anthem, so they have their design criteria, which they have approved these elevations, which you've got in front of you. Kind of a close-up of the elevation. This is kind of a rendering they sent. This isn't exact, but this is a rendering. And this is another picture I found that, again, isn't exactly the same, but just kind of shows you kind of the color schemes and the architecture they're using there. This is pretty similar. With just kind of the brick around the bottom and the colors there. So, again, this is a permitted use, so not a public hearing. Yeah, any questions for me?
So that picture that you had before of one that looks similar to it, are they going to have that much signage on it? Just curious.
You can see the signage there. Looks
On
just
the
like it's up
front
on the
and
top
side.
there, yeah.
Okay.
And you do not approve any signs with this. Signage has to come back. Yeah, that has a lot of signage on it.
Which I kind of
Those
works with
aren't
it, but
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Signage is something we would review
Can you go
separately.
to the overview? The,
Site plan?
No, that. Is there sidewalk kind of to the left of this picture? Is
Great
there?
question. On the left side? Yeah, so you
Yes.
can see there's a sidewalk that kind of comes out there to connect to whatever the next pad will be there to the north.
So the next pad's not in yet, correct?
Yeah, yeah, there's nothing on the next pad yet. So
What
if I
about
go-
across to the north or to the top of this? Because it shows a crosswalk there. If I remember right, there was something else. Something
Yep,
else
so on
came
the
to us.
north
A
side-
Jiffy, was it a Jiffy Lube that came to us and didn't have sidewalk?
You require the Jiffy Lube to put in a sidewalk.
We did require 'em to put it
The Jiffy
in?
Lube is not right on the corner, it's a couple lots up.
Okay.
Right across the street from this, and Corey can clarify, right across the street from this on the other side, let me go back to the overall, they're actually gonna do some open space. You see that parcel A there on the corner? It kind of kicks out just across to the east. It's
Mhm.
actually gonna be a landscaped area. Is that right, Corey? That's just gonna be kind of a landscaped little corner there?
Parcel A is going to be amenity where we'll put in benches and there'll be a place where it'll be a public open space where you can go in and sit at benches or maybe have a couple tables there. Along with the Ziggy's where we're putting in concrete patios on the rear of the building and on the front of the building. You'll be able to have outdoor seating there in the summer as well, so that you could go either on the patio there or across the street as well in that open space where we'll be putting that amenity as part of our open space plan.
All
And the
right.
side, you can see the sidewalk crosses the
Yeah.
street there on Rosebud to go to that parcel A is.
So you remember when we did the whole site plan, we approved kind kind of a master sidewalk plan where you guys wanted all the sidewalks connected. So there is a sidewalk that goes across on the other side of the street, which is why there's a crosswalk there that crosses you down the other side. And then they are required to connect kind of building to building, which is why we had them add that one that goes kind of to the north there that will connect to the next pad when it comes in.
All right, any other questions or comments from the planning commission on this?
I'm concerned about walkability still. I don't like that it ends at this building
Instead of just connecting all the way
instead of
across
all the way
front.
through. Yeah, I don't like that at all. I like,
Yeah, I was looking at that, Bryn. Is there a way to, I mean, we say public streets, but I know these are private streets, but effectively they're public because they're a business almost in a way, more than a standard private road is. Is there a way we could require that to make sure we have good walkability in these bigger projects? I know everybody says, well, you won't be able to, you'll have to break out the sidewalk. But to be honest, some of these businesses, we need the walkability sooner than later.
For sure. So when, again, if you remember, and Adam, you were one of the big proponents, and I wish I had it in the PowerPoint, but I don't. They approved that kind of master sidewalk plan that showed where all of the major sidewalks, and they're all, I think they're all built right now, because you guys wanted those all in, mostly up front. And then the other part of your requirement right up front was, again, when each pad comes in, you then look at how they all connect. Because you did talk a lot about walkability at the time. So, and Corey will tell you, we talked to them a lot about sidewalks here too. So again, they added that piece to come out to connect to the north. And then they've added crosswalks so you can connect to that major sidewalk on the other side of the street. But yeah, they do not have that piece that kind of connects across the front there.
And I don't remember what we used to do or what we approved. I honestly just don't remember what that looked like, the overall walkability routes. Can you go to the overall? Do you remember it? And kind of you can describe it?
Oh, I wish I had put it in here.
Well, the one thing that I do remember, Adam, is we didn't have it broken up in this many potential plots. And so the walkability should also probably change because
I remember that we had the walkability, and that's why you see that cool walking route. And every time I go to Winco, I remember, hey, that was because of us. But I thought, I'll be honest, I thought we took care of the big public roads, and I thought we took care of the big entrance in. I don't know the street name, but I've noticed there's no sidewalk there. And I thought we took care of these bigger roadways because that was the whole point. And if we remember, it was because we don't want to do what Riverton did.
Yeah.
And not be able to get from a coffee shop to
Right.
a Winco.
Right. So
Can I interject?
Yeah, Corey, if you have some input that'll be helpful, that'd be great.
Yeah, Bryn, I thought we had the connectivity plan on this PowerPoint, but it doesn't look like you have it.
no,
Brandon,
it's not in here.
This is Josh in engineering. I think it's page 65 in the PowerPoint. I just found it.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It's in your PDF. It's just not in the PowerPoint. It was in the packet, but it's not.
Oh, it's in the packet.
It's page 65 in that packet.
65 in the packet.
Let me just look at my packet.
But if you can, as Chris was saying, they were talking about the packet and the layout of these lots, that it's a different use. And so the connection that's on that sheet 65, and the site plan associated with that is not what's coming before us now. And I agree that the walkability needs to be adjusted. And I think they're trying to take care of it. You look at the layout that the Ziggy's Coffees has, and they've got connectivity through their parcel.
Yeah, they
we
have
just
it
need to
going
make sure that
across.
it's going to continue their parcels.
If I could interject of what the goal is with the sidewalks, is we put in the connectivity plan, the overall master plan, and Ziggy's will connect into that master plan. But as we develop the interior of each one of these master parcels or the super parcels or oversized parcels, the goal is we'll be connecting the sidewalks to each building on the interior, and then it'll also connect to the overall master plan, sidewalk plan that we went through with you guys last year, so that everything will connect. We think it's going to be beneficial if all the buildings connect together with sidewalk versus just putting the sidewalk around, the perimeter of each super pad, so that people will walk to each business and past each business as the sidewalks connect within the super pad. So this will all connect to the overall connectivity plan that is in your package. And this plan does too. So you'll be able to go down the sidewalk on Denali. You'll have to cross the street, but then you'll cross the street back over into Ziggy's right here. And as this develops, you'll be able to connect up at Main Street and then be able to walk all the way through this section as well as these pads develop. So we've put connection points to each pad, and as each pad develops, the sidewalk will then be tied into each building as those pads develop, so that you get that connectivity between buildings, and it draws people to go to each building, to each business, versus just walk around the perimeter. And the connectivity plan that we did as the master plan will let you walk around the perimeter of the project as well. So I wish we could pull that plan up, or if you
Rena,
can.
I got the plan up on my computer. I'm sure everybody does. Can you go to the overall with where this plat is, so I can kind of get an idea exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah, and as he's going there, Corey, I agree. This is Andy. So I totally agree. I actually like the way this is coming together, because you look at the master plan for the walkability there. It's there, and you're exactly right. I can see how that is going right by the business, and I'm fine with that. There is connectivity from this parcel. It's a small one there with the Ziggies. We just need to make sure that it's continuing to flow with the rest of them. It sounds like that is your goal as well. So
Yeah, as each one of those parcels develop, the sidewalk connect to each building, and then there'll be a connection to the outside sidewalk system, which is the overall sidewalk system. So everyone can connect to each business instead of walking through a parking lot or, whatnot.
yeah, no, I personally like it. So
Can you go back to the red colored slide? I can't remember that one right there. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you can
Yeah, I
see
agree
there
with
where
Andy.
the
I think you're
sidewalks are
meeting it
built.
because the sidewalk's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
correct.
So I'm good.
Yeah, it goes to the
Yeah.
corner. It's just kind of different.
Yeah, we've currently installed all the sidewalk down Carlsbad and around down Denali, and then along Mountain View corridor, Anthem Park Boulevard, and Main Street. And so now, as we develop the interiors, we'll connect the businesses together, and the sidewalk will then connect to all those master plan sidewalks.
That's going to be nice, because I agree the one we're talking about in Riverton, there is no sidewalks. So this is going to be nice as you continue to maintain that, Corey. It'll be nice.
So you will put the sidewalk as it heads to the north and the next lot?
Yeah, we have a connection. There's a connection point shown on the
Yeah, you can
plan
see
there, where
there.
you can see there's an arrow where there's
Mm-hmm.
it's connectivity.
You basically make everybody walk through almost in front of the Ziggies to get across. But I think that's great. It forces the business.
Yeah, we want to take people into the
Yeah.
businesses, not away from them.
Exactly. Yeah, you got your connectivity, but I don't have a problem with them walking in front of the business.
No, I think it's great. I'm good.
All right. Any other questions from anyone on the planning commission? Thank you, Corey.
Oh, you're welcome.
Then we'll look for a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve item 3.4 with staff's, let's see, how many
11.
recommendations. Apologies.
There's
11 requirements.
I'll
I'll
second
second it.
I'll give it to Brody. Motion by Andy, second by Brody, and we'll call for a vote. Lauren,
No.
Andrea,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brody,
Yes.
Adam.
Yes.
So that's approved with a vote of 5-1. And then we'll move on to item 4, any other chair and or commission comments? If there aren't any others, then we'll, future meeting, city council meeting Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. City council, actually that was canceled. We got an email that was canceled, correct?
Yeah.
So that one's canceled on the 21st. And so the next meeting for city council will be Wednesday, October 28th. And then planning commission meeting November 5th, 2020. And then a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Right?
Are we off desk?
Is the